Hello, my name is Melissa, and as someone who grew up in the Pacific Northwest, I kind of pride myself on the knowledge of the trails I have around here, and as also someone who is a little bit on the bigger side, it's hard to find trails that are reliable. For people like me, all trails lies to you. It never tells you how hard a trail is, and I can never find reviews from people like me who might have the same issues I have when hiking. This video is going to be 10 hikes that you can enjoy, but will hopefully challenge you just a bit as you move on up your hiking prowess. The first up is one I think that everybody knows, and it's going to be Multnomah Falls in the Cascade Locks, Columbia River Gorge area. There are two different ways. There's a 4th-mile hike up to a observation bridge where you can see the whole fall, or there's a 2.5-mile pretty steep switchback trail all the way up to the top. For the purpose of this list, I definitely suggest just doing the 0.5 miles up to the bridge. It's very steep to climb up that way too. It'll get your blood pumping a little bit, and the trail is maybe for another time. This is a good beginner course, just up to that little bridge. It's a beautiful view, payoff's amazing, and not quite as hard as a 2.5-mile trail. It is available during every season. I would suggest going between May to August. It's gonna have some good flow and it's not gonna be very icy. It doesn't typically snow very hard in that area, but it does get icy. Some of the hills are really hard to walk over when it's slicked over. The trail is dog and cat friendly. The next trail is going to be one that is at the base of Mount Hood. It's Little ZigZag Falls. It's in the Mount Hood National Forest. It's a 0.6-mile out and back trail. It's really pretty level. I think it's a 101-foot elevation gain. Nothing crazy whatsoever. I would consider this to be one of the easier trails you're going to see on this list, but the payoff is amazing. The waterfall is a little on the smaller side, but it's a beautiful walk along a river. The trail is accessible year-round, but it does get snow. So I went in the winter. It gets iced over at the very end of it, basically. So you'll have an issue getting to the payoff of the waterfall if you go in the winter, because it is going to be a little icy and snowy. I would suggest going from like March to September kind of time. The trail should only take you about 20 minutes, and I highly suggest it. It's amazing. Next one I'm going to mention on this list is probably the hardest, or one of the hardest, that I'm going to tell you about, and that's the Wahclella Falls trail in the Columbia River Gorge in the Multnomah area. It is one of the most popular waterfalls to hike to in the area, but it's also one of the hardest hikes without being labeled as a hard hike. It's a 1.9-mile out and back trail, and it's considered a lollipop trail. You walk out and you can go with either fork and it'll wrap back around and you come back out. It is a little hazardous because of the Eagle Creek fire. It is affected, it's in the burn area, so a lot of the trail is exposed rock, but it is beautiful. It's right between two large mountains. You're in a canyon. The waterfall is gorgeous. It has like a natural amphitheater that you climb out to. I would suggest good hiking shoes just because it can be slippery. It does have quite the elevation gain. As with all of these, I'm going to suggest be sure that you have water, be sure that you have a snack, bring good shoes, just be prepared for a hike. This one's going to test you a little bit, but it's going to be worth it. I promise. It's beautiful. This one is also open year-round. I again went in the winter, but I didn't have any problems accessing this trail. It very rarely snows really hard in that area, but I would suggest being out of there by 3:30 in the winter. It gets very dark. You got to realize that the sun's going down behind that mountain. You're going to lose your sunlight, so make sure you're out of there by 3:30 at the latest. You'll notice a pattern with these is that I talk about a lot of waterfall trails, but it's because Oregon has a lot of waterfalls. It's one of my personal interests, and they usually have beginner trails to get you to the waterfall, and then some more moderate, challenging trails to get you around it, see more of the wilderness, maybe get a better view. But you can start slow, and then if you want to do the gigantic climb, you can do that, and I really like the accessibility of that. Next one we're going to talk about is a trail and a waterfall that I never hear of. I'm a person that uses Google religiously, all trails religiously, to try to find places to go. I would not have known that Salt Creek Falls existed if I hadn't seen a sign for it when I was driving down the highway. I was going to go do something else and I saw a sign and I said, oh my God, I would love to go see a waterfall. Salt Creek Falls is the largest single drop waterfall in Oregon, and I'd never read a single thing about it. It's beautiful. It falls over a basalt cliff into like a gorge-like area. I went in the winter and it was still very accessible. The road was snowed in, but I used to drive a Hyundai and I drove down that hill and back up, so you can make it. And there's a walk out to a observation area that is the beginner hike. and that is the one I'm going to suggest to you today. It's a 0.6 mile out and back. It should take about 25 minutes, and most places consider it to be a moderately challenging trail, but I would argue that it's on the easier side of that. You're gonna huff and puff a little bit, but it's a beautiful view and truly more easy than a lot of the other ones I'm gonna suggest, and its payoff is amazing. Definitely worth it. Salt Creek Falls is a true contender on this list. There's a 200-foot elevation gain, and let me know whether or not you liked it. It is pet and kid friendly. Okay, the next one, I know I've talked about which one of these are very easy, very challenging. I think that this one might be the easiest one I suggest to you today, and that's Young River Falls, right outside of Astoria. It is beautiful, nestled out in the woods. It's a 0.3 mile out and back trail with barely any elevation gain, and it's maybe a 10-minute walk depending on how long you get distracted by the waterfall. It is by far the easiest walk I'm gonna suggest to you with the best payout in my opinion. Young's River Falls is one of my favorite waterfalls. It might be because I'm from the area, but it's a very beautiful natural amphitheater. There's like a swimming area to it that turns into a large river, creek. There's big boulders to lay on in the sun in the summer, but it is freezing because it's mountain water, so be careful. There's lots of hiking and camping in the area as well. The best time to visit Young's River Falls is between May and August, just because it gets so cold in that area of the state in the winter. Next up, sticking with our waterfalls, I swear I'll have some coastal trails at the end of this, but for now, we're gonna go with our waterfalls. And this is gonna be McDowell Creek Falls outside of Lebanon. And this is a contender for the hardest one I'm gonna tell you about today. In my opinion, it might be the hardest just for the sheer elevation of it. It's a 2.6 mile loop with a 300-foot elevation gain, but the issue for me with this trail is that it's washed out a lot of the time because of the amount of rain that area of the state gets. And even if it is warm, your elevation gain is all at once. It's basically all uphill. There's 2 staircases that you have to climb, and the stairs are very, in my opinion, disproportionate. Very big steps to get up them. So as someone who is bigger, that's a hard one for me to pull myself upstairs like that. This is probably, to me, the most challenging one on this list, but it's still beautiful. It's in an area that I feel there are not a lot of other waterfalls, so if you live in Corvallis, Lebanon, Dallas, places like that, it's a good waterfall to get to, and it's not the worst. Definitely bring your water, definitely take breaks, and wear good shoes because it will be slick, but it is kid and pet friendly, and you'll get to see 2 waterfalls. It's a very beautiful area. This next suggestion is the one that I'm the least familiar with on this list, but it's one of my favorites. I'll say that for a lot of them, but that's because we're from Oregon. We have a lot to give, and it's hard to pick favorites. This is Tumalo Falls, which is in the Terrebonne Redmond area next to Smith Rock State Park. I'm the least familiar with it because I only went there once in the summer of 2021, grossly ill-prepared. I was the kind of person that doesn't carry water anywhere, and it's hot as hell, no matter that you're walking along a river, but it was beautiful, though challenging. There are 2 different trails. I mean, there's like 10 different trails to walk around at this waterfall, but given the nature of this list, I'm going to give you the easiest one because the other ones are definitely more of an undertaking than I think we're at the level 4 right now. It's a 0.5 mile out and back to some developed overlooks at the top of Tumalo Falls. It's a beautiful hike. Again, the elevation gain, it feels as all in one go. For me, it's way easier to do a gradual kind of switchback to get up to somewhere, but this one is really just straight up to the top, kind of gradual like that. I did get my sweat going. I did need some water, but it was not terrible, and it was a beautiful view. I love the deserty area of Oregon, and to have a waterfall mixed in with that is beautiful to me. I would be remiss not to tell you that there is a 6.7 mile trail that leads around the waterfall, and I think shows you 2 other waterfalls, but it is considered challenging. I would consider it difficult personally. So I don't suggest that for this list, but if you tackle Tumalo Falls up to the viewpoint and you feel like that was nothing, maybe go walk the long hike. Come back and tell me how that went. I will not be doing that yet. The Sahalie and Koosah Falls Trail is one of the most beautiful trails I've ever walked, and in my opinion, also one of the easiest. It's a trail where you can see 2 different waterfalls. It is out in the Willamette National Forest. It's available year-round. It does get snowed in, but the trail is typically pretty clear, and if it's not, it's very compact snow. So I would say that you could traverse the trail at any time of year. Just look for road closures in the area if you're trying to go in the winter. It's a 0.9 mile out and back trail near Sisters, Oregon, and it's again considered moderately challenging, but I would call it on the easier end of that. It should only take you about 30 minutes with a 144-foot elevation gain, and it's much more gradual than some of the other ones I have commented on here. It's not like a switchback where you get more time to climb up, but it's not the dead climb that some of these suggestions have been. So to me, it's way easier, and it's completely beautiful. Top 10 waterfalls in the state. We're moving to the coast with this next one, and we're also, I think, tying for easiest, but it's the Heceta Head Lighthouse Trail. It's a 1 mile out and back trail near Florence that gives you a beautiful view of a historic lighthouse and amazing ocean views. There's some really cool rock formations out in the water. There are tide pools at the base of this. It is a very, very easy walk. I love the lighthouses we have in our area. I love historic buildings like that. It has plenty to look at, very easy walk, and then you can spend some time on the beach afterward. It is open year-round, and the trail is easy to traverse year-round, but be prepared for wind and rain on the Oregon coast no matter when you go. It could be mid-July, and you could get pelted with rain, so be aware of that one. If you, again, want to challenge yourself beyond the scope of this list, as I've mentioned before, almost all of these hikes have harder hikes that you can do. For this one, there's a trail from the lighthouse to a place called Hobbit Beach, which is the beach below the lighthouse, but you are adding like 300 miles and 800 feet of elevation gain. It is considered moderately challenging. I huffed and I puffed and I blew the house down when I tried to do it, okay? It was very difficult. That's why I'm not suggesting it to you for this list. But again, if you did it, you felt like you could tackle something bigger, good luck. Let me know how it went. The last hike on this list is also going to be coastal, but it does err more on the challenging side of things. This is going to be the Arch Rock viewpoint onto Secret Beach. The initial 0.3 mile walk to the overlook of the Arch Rocks in Florence, Oregon is very, very easy. Like, shouldn't even be considered a hike easy, but I'm going to challenge you to take this hike to the moderate side and follow it down to a secret hidden beach. It's a 2.3 mile trail with around a 300-foot elevation gain, and it is considered moderately challenging, but I am going to challenge you to do this one. I do think that this one's maybe the more challenging one I'm going to suggest, but you can do it. I have nothing but faith in you, and it's a beautiful payoff. It's a beautiful beach. It should only take you a little over an hour. Remember to bring your water, and remember to wear good shoes. And that is it for our first list. 10 easier hikes for bigger people to do in Oregon, in my humble opinion. Maybe we'll do some more of these. Maybe we'll do some more challenging ones. Who knows? If you've ever been to one of these, let me know how it went for you. Do you have any other suggestions?